Hey everyone, Eric Watson here, freelance writer, player of games, writer of words, recorder of videos, and tabletop role-playing aficionado. Welcome to another DM's Guild review, my written and video review series. Take a look at the adventures and supplemental material at the Dungeon Masters Guild website. This video will be reviewing the Seasonal Monster Supplement 13 Horrors of Halloween, designed by Lucas Anderson, Bumley, Daniel King, Jack Weighill, Jonathan Swadley, Aaryan, Balu, and Sebastian for Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. This review has been sponsored by the publisher, and a review copy has been provided for the purposes of this review. If you are interested in a sponsored review, please reach out via email, Twitter, or Discord, or on my submission form at roguewatson.com. If you enjoy the content, consider using my affiliate links for online shopping and supporting me via patreon.com/roguewatson. So how do we make a horror-themed monster supplement when we already have most of the toys already available in the toy box, right? Like, as of the original monster manual, in 5e at least, we've got ghouls, we've got zombies, we've got skeletons, vampires, werewolves, scarecrows, mummies, crawling claws, all devils and demons. Like, we really have most of what you would consider to be horror, classic horror monsters. So what else can we do there aside from maybe adding some variants or something? And I was actually impressed to find that on the one hand, I feel like this is the easiest of the seasonal supplements to do because everybody has in their head what, horror and Halloween mean, or Halloween is just, associated with horror, obviously. So it's the easiest thing to do, but it's also a challenging one because a lot of monsters already have that theme, right? That's already fits. So maybe it could be harder to come up with more original, interesting creatures. So with that being said, I think this does a great job providing new and interesting stat blocks that I would not have even considered or thought of. Some of them are inspired by classic movies, like 50s movies, not even like, what we consider necessarily modern horror movies or anything. These are way back when, almost really more monster movies. In fact, you've got The Blob and Godzilla, which are both more monster movies than, which I guess is, technically horror adjacent. It also draws from a lot of classic horror stories and folklore, including even, non-American folklore, which I always thought of Halloween as very much an Americanized holiday. My disappointment is it specifically says Halloween as the seasonal supplement, and I didn't feel like I got a whole lot of actual Halloween stuff in there, because when I think of Halloween, obviously you think of dressing up in costumes, trick-or-treating, candy, and then a lot of classic horror movies that have to do around Halloween, such as the Halloween fucking movies, that is Michael Myers with a knife and the mask and things. So I thought it lacked some of those elements. It does have a race of plant people called pumpkins, which is good. That checks that box pretty well. But for the most part, and the Pantomime Horse is actually really clever too. That's the one that takes the whole costumed thing and goes in a really dark, cool direction with it. So I thought that was really interesting. But we still get some really cool stat blocks, and this Holodanger crew that creates these seasonal monster supplements. I'm still really impressed with the quality and the presentation, the fact that we get original artwork for all these creatures, and we get adventure hooks for all of them. And something I've mentioned the last couple reviews for these supplements is there's also a focus on legendary actions. Even for creatures that aren't like top tier, huge boss threats, they still get legendary actions, which I'm a big fan of. Anytime you want to focus on a single monster as a threat, as like the marquee thing you're dealing with in that, quest line or adventure, that monster needs to have legendary actions to actually make it exciting to fight, because otherwise the action economy is just going to absolutely kick its ass. We're going to go over some of the monster stats here, and there is a huge focus on higher level threats. I believe over half of the monsters that are included here are CR 10 or above, which is solidly tier 3 to tier 4. And yes, the Godzilla monster is fucking CR 30, basically a Tarrasque plus other things. So if you were hoping for really terrifying monster threats in terms of like literally mechanically, like they're very powerful and strong, then I think this is going to be quite satisfying. The Dolahan alone, for example, only CR 10, has a spine whip, which I don't even see that from the art, but literally it's whips his like spine as a attack, which is awesome. His steed is actually a separate stat block, which is very interesting. When they're together, he gains, I believe, advantage on his attacks. And the steed, of course, can like trample people down and knock them around. The Dolahan has some innate spell casting. He can track people. He's got damage resistance. turn resistance, and when he attacks with his spine whip, first of all, it's a +10 to hit, an average of 22 damage. He can either choose to reduce your max hit points or grapple and drag you, and can also paralyze you and unleash once per day, so once per encounter, this Call of Death, which means whenever it's summoned, it's designed to track down and kill one specific person, which can be kind of a cool plot hook. And if it's encountering that person, he can unleash this wave that basically does damage equal to that person's max hit points. So it literally just downs somebody if they fail a charisma saving throw. So a very, very powerful, scary creature for the classic Headless Horseman, which I love that. That's also absolutely checks that box of what I consider to be a very classic Halloween monster that's got that, classic folklore story, the Ichabod Crane, all of that. It's just so well done and part of that Halloween theme that is very awesome. Other ones are more tangentially related, although I do appreciate the international flavoring of other creatures. The Gasha Dakuru is, I think it's like a yokai. It's from Japanese folklore of this giant skeleton that's created from basically like almost a mass grave of people who died of famine. Which is interesting that you've got this gigantic, literally a gargantuan undead creature who's all about stealth and like popping up on people and being like super quiet and creepy. Like that's actually a fascinating creature. And a lot of these creatures can regenerate. You can't fully kill them. It's very much part of an ongoing story or tale, which is cool. And obviously the whole, giant skeleton that was a big popular like Halloween decoration. I think that fits, the Halloween theme pretty well. That was last year or something that everybody was getting those giant fucking 10-foot skeletons. So this one is even bigger than that, but a fun idea, I think, to have just a giant skeleton. Then we've got the giant monsters, which at this point, the theme kind of loses me a little bit because as much as I think giant monsters are cool, I don't think they necessarily have anything to do with Halloween specifically, or even really horror specifically. I guess The Blob was technically a horror, but I think, giant monster movies are kind of a side genre from classic horror movies, which is the case with the Blob and the Godzilla. It goes Godrago or the giant Blob are the two stat blocks, CR18 and CR30 for the King of Monsters. It's cool to have them here. I think they're really neat stat blocks. The Blob obviously is like just a super powerful ooze. It's a little bit weak in that it only moves 10 feet and has no range attacks, which makes it a little bit not as fun for the DM to make a fight. It helps a little bit with its legendary action. It can move up to its speed and make a pseudoped attack, which means it gets to move an extra 10 feet, during its legendary actions. But still, I feel like you could just kind of kite that thing in a lot of cases and take it down that way. And obviously, Godrago is just ridiculously powerful. It is a Tarask, plus it has like the nuclear breath it can do, which I'm going to read this to you. It's a DC 25 deck save, 120 foot line. Takes 20 d10 radiant damage, suffers 1 level of exhaustion, and it just dispels any magical effects as if targeted by a 5th level dispel magic. That's hilarious. Yeah, it's cool to have a Godzilla stat block in D&D. It's that's pretty much what the Tarask is, but it doesn't really have anything to do with Halloween. I would not really think so, in my opinion, but still kind of cool. Infortunia, I don't know if this is inspired by anything specific other than the whole like broken mirror is 7 years of bad luck kind of superstition, which I guess could kind of fit with it. And I like the fact that it's kind of this creepy like, I don't know, tattered woman or something with like the broken mirror face. And it's got an interesting stat block where it actually has to make a save, and if it fails, then it has to use all of its movement to then do one of its attacks at random. You really get to choose to use it optimally, which is kind of interesting. Still CR13 though, pretty powerful, and a lot of its attacks do cool things. Shoots like fires a broken shard of mirror, or summons this black cat that causes people to be afraid of it. Which I think black cat should have been its own stat block though. I can't believe it seems like it was really missing here. The moon could be paired with the sun from the Midsummer Monster holiday supplement. I think the moon is a lot more interesting and actually ends up being probably one of my favorite monsters here, just because it's got a really fun thematic stat block that involves like throwing, shooting out like crescent blades, almost like Moon Knight, I guess. It can also turn people into werewolves with its induced lycanthropy. It's got a bunch of spells that have to do with doing tidal wave. It's gravitational moon thing, which, by the way, it can also just do gravitational pull as like an attack. Just, I don't know, it feels like they did a really cool job with like thinking like, what could a moon do? And this is just a lot of fun different things that a moon could do. It can cast darkness. It can cast a moonbeam, obviously, wall of force, like all these different moon associated abilities and spells. Night Terror is kind of this feels like it checks the box of like, okay, some kind of creepy, boogeyman ghost story thing. And it's just a creepy creature that can stealth in night and doesn't like the light. Just kind of a generic stat block, but it feels like it checks that box. The Nuclevi is based on, I had to look this one up, by the way. Thank you, Wikipedia. Like Scandinavian folklore, like specifically like the northern Scottish Isles, of this demon that is like a half a skinless horse with rider on top, and it has to do with coming out of like the ocean and attacking people, but it can't cross fresh water. That is a deep ass dive. Technically, again, I don't think it has anything to do with Halloween, but I guess it does fit the bill of an original horror monster creation. And I think it is interesting to draw from different cultural folklore around the world. And maybe somebody at the table will actually like, I understood that reference. Or maybe not, and that makes it more interesting to use because nobody fucking knows what this is. The Pantomime Horse is one of my favorites because I think this is a really great idea of taking the concept of a Halloween costume, which is the two people, or maybe you say like county fair or something, where people dress up. I don't know if anybody actually does this, by the way, but you see it on TV and movies, where two people dress up as one horse. They're put together in a awkward way, and they're controlling this horse. And this is the idea of, okay, what if that was a horror creature that was two different creatures that could join together and become a horse that was indistinguishable from a regular horse, or could split apart and be their own little creatures that could stare at people and frighten them or attack them with their hooves. The most fucked up thing this can do, however, is literally look at people and bisect them. And it's a harmless effect, which is fascinating to do. It literally looks at people and like cuts them in half, but you're like perfectly fine. It doesn't actually do any damage. And it's just kind of like, smoky tendrils on both halves, but you are still cut in fucking half, which is absolutely crazy thing to do to player characters. As part of a one-shot, that would be amazing to have this creature like running around that could then do that to different player characters, and then they have to deal with that. I think that's hilarious, although I'd be very cautious about doing that to an actual like real campaign character. It's like, oh, you're cut in half now, and only a remove curse spell or greater magic can actually heal your both halves together. Pumpkin checks the box of Halloween pretty well. Just having, jack-o'-lantern creatures. We get multiple stat blocks where it's like a whole race of creatures that are plant creatures, and then the king actually has legendary actions and layer actions, which is cool to see. They're not that exciting stat blocks, though. They can kind of whip out with their plant vines and everything. The Spindleman, I believe, is my favorite stat block of this bunch. I don't quite know the reference. Obviously, I get Slenderman, and I think that's kind of what it's based on, but then it combines it with like a tailor. I don't know anything about like a killer tailor. I thought maybe that has to do with something with the what's the name of the demon barber that was, I think, didn't Johnny Depp play that role at some point? But anyway, that was a barber, not a tailor. So this has to do with the the Slender Man is a tall, skinny, faceless man who kind of appears out of screen and tends to like teleport kind of, I guess. And the Spindle Man can totally do that in the spatial fold ability, which I thought mechanically it's pretty interesting. It gets to use a dex check at the end of its turn, and if it's higher than all of the passive perception of the creatures that are trying to see it, they need just effectively teleport 60 feet and then can hide somewhere else. I thought that was a cool way of mechanically using its ability to kind of appear out of sight and stuff. It's technically not even magical, it's just doing this as a thing. It also has the ability to target somebody with its cross-stitch ability for a DC 15 dex save, and then it can use its needlepoint attack with, I believe, advantage because they're restrained, and then if it hits them, it's a critical hit. So it has a really cool, like, one-hit punch of this scary ambusher that can just fucking annihilate people and then disappear away. That to me is a very effective horror creature. So I think it's a cool design, it's a neat stat block, and it really paints the picture of just a murderous, like, teleporting creature. But then if you look at the adventure hooks, a lot of these are really, like, humorous and fun, which also spins a cool way of using this creature. And all of these entries, and something that the Holiday Danger books have been very cool with, is including adventure hooks of how to use these possible creatures. Now, some of them are more, a little bit more generic, like, oh, the village needs help and they're beset by, the pumpkin or something. and that's fine. But what I really like are the ones that give me new ideas and inspire me to use this creature in different or unique ways. So, for example, the adventure hooks for the Spindleman could be that you are just walking into a store, a shop of clothing, a tailor, and it's the Spindleman is right there, and and he appears right where you would not normally see him, kind of out of your vision, and he's very creepy, but he's like a merchant basically, which is pretty fun. Another one is you like summon a demon, but the demon's like obviously being fitted for something, so like standing there with his arms still, and then you see the Spindleman like spin out. He's like, "Can this wait? I'm still measuring this guy." Like all this stuff is really funny, and I think it's a really neat idea. And then of course the third one is like somebody getting fucking murdered the shit by this creepy Spindleman is just getting stabbed with its needle point. So really neat ways of using this particular unique creature. Stingy Jack, I have no idea what the reference here is, other than this is a dude that tricked the devil himself, and then so he doesn't have to go to hell. So he just wanders the material plane, and he carries basically like a jack-o'-lantern. It's a turnip with a candle from the hells inside, and he can use that as his attack. It's his Geist Beam, which is this really cool attack that also inflicts the Bane condition. But I'm not sure what the reference is necessarily. And this is one where it definitely feels like it's more of an NPC rather than somebody who's actually going to fight you, which was a kind of an issue, maybe not necessarily an issue, but something people should know about from one of their other supplements, which was the Foolish Foes one, where it was more about NPCs that you would meet or get quest hooks from versus ones you would actually battle. This one is definitely more creatures you would battle, except Stingy Jack, I think, is one that you would probably more meet and do quest work for, or have as a temporary party member or something, which is reflected in the adventure hooks as well. And the final one is the Waxworks, which is the classic, I believe, because the House of Wax movie that was like 20 years ago was itself a remake. So this is the, turning people into wax statues and using those as kind of a bunch of minion stat blocks, and then overall like layer actions you can use if the animated puppets and wax and figures are in the House of Wax, which of course is where you would want to do these kind of things. As much as I kind of like a lot of these stat blocks and ideas here, I still feel like there was a lot that was left behind that I wanted to see, and I think that may be a problem because horror and Halloween are such a well-known theme and a popular, how many people, us included, do Halloween one-shots for D&D and use horror movies as plot points and classic horror movie monsters. I would have liked to see kind of more of those done with this same style of giving me cool adventure hooks and neat ideas, and and obviously they're not opposed to that because we get the freaking Godzilla one, we get the Blob one, but what about like the slasher, either the Michael Myers or the Jason Voorhees, where it's the hockey mask and the machete, or go Freddy Krueger. What about somebody who's got the the claws and can affect people in their dreams and cause nightmare things to happen? What about having some kind of, undead girl or woman with the long hair that covers her face that's, pretty popular in Japanese horror stories? Or maybe some kind of Grim Reaper creature, or something that involves candy. I would have thought we'd get some kind of candy golem or something. We get golems in all of these. We got the barbecue golem in the Midsummer and all that, and the love chocolate golem. I thought those were all cool ideas, and I was waiting. Okay, where's my Halloween themed golem? And we didn't get that here, so I was kind of disappointed in that. So even though I like the ones that are included here, I still feel like there was a lot of potential that was left behind, because I do think, as much as I do like the original stat blocks quite a bit, I think we could have used even a few more of bringing classic, slashers and some, undead demons and all those kind of fun creatures that you would get the references for, include those in here and give it the same, treatment and the same myriad of different cool stat blocks and legendary actions and things to make those really, really fun, memorable creatures. I would have loved to see those. I really feel like it was kind of missing those. But for the ones that are here, I think these are great. Absolute thumbs up. And I really, really enjoy really all these Hall of Danger books. Ultimately, I would probably put this one probably about in the middle, if we're being honest. I think Christmas Sleighs may be you can go back and watch all these reviews and find out. But as of right now, I'd probably put Christmas Sleighs as my favorite. Then I think I would rank Foolish Foes, then Horrors of Halloween, then Love, and then Midsummer, I believe is how I'd rank them. I would probably recommend most of them, just because I think they're really well done monster supplements that all have fun theming, and the production values are absolutely phenomenal. Let's go over my pros and cons for 13 Horrors of Halloween Pros. Clever new stat blocks inspired by classic horror movies and folklore. I think they do all fit the theme pretty well. On the other hand, it's a very easy theme to fit. But I really like all the stat blocks. They do a really good job making things very interesting, and that helps if you make them more powerful, which is my other pro. You focus on higher level monsters and legendary actions. You don't necessarily have to only have high monsters have legendary actions, but if you have more powerful monsters, it gives you the chance and the flexibility to say, okay, I'm going to give them all these different cool abilities and these different features. Other pro, adventure hooks and original artwork for each monster. That's something you can expect from all of these Hall of Danger monster supplements, and it's one of the reasons why I really like this series, because it lends itself to a consistent quality that you get from all of these books. And I think the adventure hooks are really fun. I only really read the one for the Spindle Man, but they're all really well done, and give you the ideas of how to use a creature, which is exactly what I want from adventure hooks. The con is, as I mentioned at the end of the review, which I feel like it's missing some obvious entries. The mask slasher, the long-haired demon undead girl, the something involving candy. That's such a big part of Halloween and trick-or-treating is candy, and I feel like we didn't get anything candy related here, which is odd. So I just feel like it missed a lot of the obvious ones. I did like the ones that were here. I don't know if I would actually even replace any of the ones here, and I get that obviously number 13 was a nice usage, but still really missing some of the ones I would have loved to see here that fit that theme. Maybe next year we'll get some more. Final verdict: with the easiest theme of the Hall of Danger supplements, 13 Horrors of Halloween focuses on large, terrifying threats while maintaining the high quality of the monster series. Thank you to everyone for watching this video review. You can see my written review at roguewatson.com. You can watch more reviews and follow our own D&D adventures here on my YouTube channel, and you can support my work at patreon.com/roguewatson. Thank you.